So this presentation is based on my research experience in higher education, and also by working in different institutions in Europe, particularly in Portugal and in the UK. I start with this slide by exploring the different conceptions of what can be a doctorate nowadays. I'm not going to explore this in much detail because my previous colleagues, they have made this explanation already. But it could be seen as a process of knowledge creation. That's a more traditional approach to a doctorate. A contribution to knowledge that needs to be innovative in their discipline or field through original research. But it can also be a process of knowledge application, and we have this definition in the Quality Assurance Agency in the UK, which means that the doctoral candidate should contribute with an original application of existing knowledge or understanding. And it's very aligned with the professional or practice-based doctorates in the UK. But it has to do with this process of personal development. The doctoral candidate should develop the skills, the abilities and the attributes that allow him or her to contribute to society in many ways outside academia. So the landscape is changing. In 2009, there has been an increase of doctoral graduates in OECD countries. And the same is happening in UK, Portugal, which implies it has some implications. There are different types of candidates with various social and cultural backgrounds, motivations and expectations. As I referred to, there are new types of doctorates emerged, often in response to the needs of different professions, which foster a closer collaboration between universities and business, industry or society. And this presentation is going to focus on these new structured programs that are appearing in many different European countries. We call it the doctoral programs, but they can also be called doctoral training programs or taught-based programs. So the terminology is slightly different according to the countries. But it's basically the third cycle of Bologna, as Lydia already explained in the morning. And in some cases, it can constitute the first phase of a young researcher's career. So in a way, it can be seen as a continuation from the second cycle, in some cases. And these doctoral programs, these doctoral training programs, have a normal workload between 3 to 4 years. And they have a taught element that can be offered in year 1, in some cases in year 2. And we can have these modules delivered through lectures, workshops, or seminars. And in some countries, this can be also offered by institutional or interinstitutional support units or centers. So I start with this: what are the opportunities for doctoral candidates? I would say that, and focusing on these structured doctoral programs, we can have more oriented support, or doctoral candidates can have more oriented support, conducting candidates from dependent to independent learning processes. So they start year 1 with, they need to attend some of these modules, some of these courses. So they tend to be more autonomous in year 2 and year 3 or year 4. Candidates, they start establishing their peer networks and group learning, leading to future research communities of practice, which is extremely important because sometimes, we need to work as part of a team. And these networks, they start to be developed in year 1. And it's really important to establish the contact with colleagues, with other academics, supervisors. Candidates can have their doctoral degrees more easily recognized by employers in the international context because the third cycle of Bologna is defined by learning outcomes that follow the Dublin descriptors. On the other hand, in some countries there is the possibility to have a certificate after the first year of studies, which is also recognized by employers. So a doctoral candidate might decide not to follow up or to finish their doctoral education. So after a year, he might decide that he wants to go, try to find a job, but he did a period of training in an institution. On the other hand, the quality assurance mechanisms that are in place in these type of doctoral programs can ensure candidates' voice is heard, which is of essential importance for the success of many PhD candidates. Which is slightly different from the traditional PhD 20 years ago, for example, where the quality assurance mechanisms were not so evident. They are much more evident now with these doctoral programs. Now, what are the challenges of these type of programs for universities, institutions as a whole, for the doctoral candidates, and for the supervisors? I start with the challenges for institutions. And the first aspect that I would like to explore with you has to do with this need to overcome the growing dissatisfaction with the match between the knowledge and skills of PhD holders and the labor market. There has been criticism centered on the excessive specialization of the PhD, the lack of opportunities for interdisciplinary work, and lack of ability to transfer and apply knowledge and skills outside the academic context. Using the UK as an example, some studies suggest that the STEM, which means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, PhDs, fail to adequately prepare students for the complexity of their future professional lives. And I believe that there is a need for a better communication between universities and the business enterprise sector, as Lydia also referred in the morning. And following your report on collaborative doctoral education that I read, I came across the need for the co-design of doctoral programs between the higher education sector and other sectors in society. The collaboration should start in the design of the programs, which I consider to be the first phase. They should work in collaboration in the definition of the learning outcomes that need to be aligned with the Dublin descriptors. So also, in spite of the collaboration in the supervision, there should be this collaboration in the design of the programs. The other aspect then has to do with this need of fostering a research culture that leads to a better and more motivated doctoral students. A research culture in this context is the environment that allows students to learn in a research-led or a research-based education since undergraduate studies. It is important for all institutions who offer doctoral programs to ensure that undergraduate and MA students start learning in this research or inquiry-based mode. This will encourage an interest in research, leading to better prepared doctoral candidates. So it's not just about developing some of these research skills in the third cycle of Bologna, but it's also about starting to engage in research since undergraduate studies. So in this perspective, the curriculum should be designed by the principles of research-based and research-led teaching. And to give you an example, universities in the UK are foreseeing the importance to start equipping students with the research skills, the knowledge and abilities that will allow them to pursue doctoral studies in the future, or simply to equip them with transferable skills, particularly research skills that will contribute for their success in a career outside academia. And I could give you some examples of this. For example, and you probably, David, can explore this in more detail, but UCL has a new initiative that is called a connected curriculum, which aims to ensure that all UCL students are able to participate in research at all levels of their programs of study. And at Kingston University, there are other initiatives where students learn as partners in research with academics or postgraduate students. So they start to learn in this research environment mode, which will help them to move to a doctoral education. In terms of the challenges for doctoral candidates, where there are many financial difficulties, some family lifestyle problems, cultural difficulties, and isolation. The uncertainty of the future is also a motive of concern. Which career afterwards? What am I going to do afterwards? Am I going to be a postdoc researcher? Am I going to be a senior lecturer or lecturer in higher education? Or am I going to have a career outside academia? They don't know. The other challenge has to do with this integration of research teams. Students, they need to start integrating research teams in order to be able to create their own networks and also to manage their time more efficiently and work towards deadlines, which is not always possible. And another challenge relies on this supervisory process. The supervisor and the doctoral candidate, that is a huge challenge for most of the PhD candidates. And I came up with this cartoon about the supervisory process. It is true that some students or some doctoral candidates, they feel that they don't get the necessary support from the supervisor. And they feel lost, they feel isolated. And it brings some challenges for the supervisors as well. So there are challenges for the doctoral candidates, but also to supervisors. It's not the same thing supervising a PhD candidate nowadays. If we compare to what happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it's completely different. So supervisors, they have some questions, and some of these questions arose from the professional training of supervisors that are coordinated at Kingston University. And these are some of the questions that they have. How to supervise doctoral candidates with more diverse experiences and characteristics? They are different, they have different motivations, so how should I engage with them? Am I prepared to do that? How to cope with candidates' financial difficulties, family lifestyle problems, cultural difficulties, and isolation, it's the same problem. Or how to organize the support given by the supervisory research team, which nowadays can be in a multidisciplinary and interinstitutional team. And this is not so easy to manage as we might think, because nowadays we can supervise 4, 5, 6 PhD candidates. And I can be the first supervisor, my colleague can be the second supervisor, and in some cases we have a third supervisor. So how to actually work with other supervisors? What are our responsibilities? How are we going to do this? It seems easy, but it's not easy at all. And even for the candidate, it's difficult to organize it, it's difficult to understand who should I go to? Should I discuss this with my second supervisor? Should I discuss this with my third supervisor? So it's a new concept. And we address this in our professional training supervision. At Kingston University, this training is compulsory for all new academics who want to supervise doctoral candidates. And even those who have more experience, they are suggested to attend this one-day training session. In some countries, there is no training for supervisors. There is no training, for example, in Portugal. So when I had my first PhD candidate, I didn't have any support. So it was basically by my own conceptions and from my experiences of being supervised. But things are changing. And now I would like to present to you very briefly a framework of doctoral research supervision quality. This is a project that was done by my first PhD candidate in Portugal. She started in 2008, and we work in collaboration by trying to understand the quality of the supervisor process. What would be the competencies that supervisors and students should have to succeed in this process? And very briefly, this is a study that she conducted with a group of supervisors and PhD candidates from different disciplines in one institution. And we came up with this list of competences, academic-related competences in this case, and this list, in this presentation, this PowerPoint, are those competencies that reach the level of agreement between supervisors and PhD candidates. So both of them, for example, in terms of the supervisor's competences, they refer the importance of the ability to promote students' autonomy, ability to demonstrate and promote creativity and innovation, the ability to be rigorous and demanding towards the research which is being developed by the student, and so on. And you can see, on the other hand, the students' competencies, which are aligned as well. And this question of autonomy is extremely important, as I referred to in the beginning, because students in the first year, they need to be more dependent, probably, from the supervisor. But progressively, they tend to be more autonomous, they tend to work with their colleagues, and they create their own networks, and they will be more independent. So it is part of the process. In the second one, I have some interpersonal and academic-related competences. I have two, which are in bold, that were just referred by PhD candidates. And that is related with the ability to give new and enriching contributions to the research and the work produced by the student. And the other one, the ability to negotiate with the student research options. And then, related to the students' competences, the ones in grey means that supervisors and PhD candidates didn't reach a consensus. They were considered to be problematic. Let's focus on this one, because it arose different problems when we organized the focus groups with PhD candidates and supervisors. And it has to do with writing articles for publication. Some supervisors, some PhD candidates said, no, this is really important. Others said, not really. It doesn't contribute to the quality of the supervisory process. And as you know, we live in a culture sometimes that it's considered to be publish or perish. I'm sure that you are familiar with this expression. And some supervisors, they ask their PhD candidates to produce, to write, to produce outputs. Also because it's considered to be important for them to start communicating their research findings, to communicate to a broader audience, specifically in certain areas. For others, especially in the social sciences and humanities, some students, they prefer not to write immediately. They need to reflect on the data, they need to go back, especially when they are doing this qualitative analysis. So they prefer not to publish anything because they don't feel secure. They want to wait until the end to write their thesis, and then they will publish. So there are different realities. The other one that is in grey, it has to do with this idea of the ability to integrate in his or her work the supervisor's criticism and feedback, or the ability to negotiate with the supervisor the options that he or she takes concerning the research, or to demonstrate flexibility and open-mindedness to work with the supervisor. So these were some of the competences that we came up with in what regards the quality of the research supervisory process. I would like to say that more studies are needed, more research is needed on candidates' assessment in different doctoral programs in Europe, and also on doctoral programs evaluation across Europe. Because doctoral programs and these doctoral training programs are different according to different institutions. And if we want to have the recognition, the third cycle, it's also important to, in a way, compare the quality of this provision in order to achieve a better recognition of doctoral programs across Europe. Nowadays, we have more and more doctoral holders moving to other countries. So it's really important as well to have this recognition as a background. On the other hand, we should focus on this internationalization of doctoral programs. I think there should be a better communication between doctoral schools or research graduate schools in the UK, leading to more joint European doctoral programs, which will facilitate the mobility of candidates and the creation of international networks. Sometimes we say to our PhD candidates, you need to be in contact with other colleagues in other institutions in Europe. You need to promote this internationalization. It's extremely important in doctoral programs. But for the student, this is not so easy to do. Obviously that the supervisor will have an important role in this process. But definitely, we have very good examples of joint European doctoral programs running with different institutions in Europe. It's the starting point, and I think that it should be something that institutions should be concerned and try to develop in the future. Thank you so much. I think with the 15 minutes that I have,